Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Huddle. It's
Morning,
Thursday, one more day to Friday, and Super Bowl weekend.
That's right.
Big weekend for most of the country. I will be excited about the food, but I can't promise I'll be watching the game.
And are you into the commercials, Rachel? Like,
I can get into the commercials.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I've been so disappointed with them. Like, I thought, like, I used to love them, and then the last couple of years, I don't know if it's because they preview them early or what, but I don't know. I haven't had this. I haven't been as excited.
Yeah, I was gonna say now you can see them online, right? Before like,
and they all go to I mean, I get what they're doing earned media wise. It's brilliant, right? You air it on like a news station first. It's a free ad. I mean, it's beautiful.
I'll be curious how much politics goes into ads. Seriously, this year, given like the penchant to kind of like try to be on the side of Trump versus some starting to go the opposite direction. I'll be curious to see, because these things are cut or made months in advance. Like, they're not made today. These are multi-million-dollar productions.
Yeah, so. and then there's the whole halftime show. Well, we should talk. Yeah. We'll talk more politics
tomorrow.
Tomorrow for sure.
Super
Sports Friday.
So for today, we've got a bunch to get to. So Democrats have laid out 10 new demands for coming to a deal on DHS funding. We'll talk about those versus the president and a new interview he gave about lessons he learned in Minnesota. We'll talk about Republicans' Latino problem. Tons of stories about this in recent days. What are they going to do to turn it around? We'll talk about the New Jersey special and specifically AIPAC. Really throwing down there, trying to send a signal. Will they be successful? Is this even smart? We'll discuss this new body cam video from a cop in New York that was released over the past, 15 hours, Sean, or something like this. Anyway, Mamdani siding with the guy who pulled the knife on the cop rather than the cop himself. A lot of outrage about that in New York. And we'll discuss something that a lot of people here in Washington have been talking about, which is these mass layoffs at the Washington Post and the future of journalism, future of media, just in general. First, let's look at the day book, though. 8:30 a.m., the president's going to be heading to the National Prayer Breakfast. Always interesting, given that a lot of religious and pious folks, love the president, but he's not exactly pious himself, right? Any expectations from that, Sean?
Oh, no. I mean, get your popcorn out early today.
Because of the prayer breakfast?
Yeah. I mean, look, he just doesn't, I think the word is more reverence. Like it's not pious to me or piety. It's more like he'll say anything to anyone, any place, whether he's at the Al Smith dinner in front of a bunch of Catholics or at the prayer breakfast, what he says, he'll crack jokes. So I'm excited.
Hopefully there'll be appropriate jokes and not. But anyway,
I'll be curious about immigration.
I was going to say there's the immigration thing. There's been a lot of Catholic leaders who have come out and very subtly, but clearly criticized the U.S. on
not so subtle.
And such.
They're increasingly not so subtle.
Like just for example, Politico noted this morning that faith leader Don Lemon. They literally called Don Lemon a faith leader, which yeah. I tweeted it out.
He's the god.
Don Lemon is a faith leader.
Yeah, I know.
No, but they also went through like Pope Leo's comments about immigration and such in the United States too. But we digress. It'll be interesting though to see, just one more note on this, if he mentions Don Lemon, because a lot of religious people, were angry about the church anti-ICE protest.
Oh, I think you. What did you say? I wonder. No. I don't.
It will come up. You think he'll brag about
it? How far and disturb this?
Yeah. How far off the tee does the ball go? Is your question.
Sure. Okay. And then he receives his intelligence briefing, 11 a.m. Caroline Leavitt's going to be briefing the press at 1 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, the president's going to be making an announcement of some sort. And we want to also flag, this is not in the agenda. And we haven't really talked about this much, but now the Trump administration is getting even further involved, and that is helping Savannah Guthrie find her mother. Right. A lot of you probably have seen this in the news. Television star's mother disappeared in Arizona from her home over the weekend, still has not been found, the belief that she was taken. And the president truthed last night that he spoke to Savannah Guthrie, and then he's also directing all law enforcement to be at the families and local law enforcement's, disposal.
Kash Patel's on his way out right now.
Kash Patel, correct, out to help. So we'll be obviously watching that, a terrible story.
point on this. This is stuff that I know the president like gets a lot of crap about the media, despite his historic amount of transparency. But like, it's this kind of stuff where like he didn't have to do that. And frankly, it's not a federal case. I mean, by definition, until an individual crosses state lines, it's not a federal case. But I think this just goes to show that despite all of the narrative, like
he's got a heart.
He has a heart. He's very concerning. I've talked about how he gets moved by imagery and things like this. Savannah and the president go back in terms of the number of interviews. And so I know it doesn't get seen, and obviously Savannah's the focus and her mom's the focus, but this is a political show, and we point out things sometimes that, fly below the radar. And I want to make sure that gets noticed.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's do a quick word from our sponsor, and then we will jump in. Cozy Earth. I've been using the sheets now for about 5 days. They're incredible. I've always been a linen girl, but the material on these Cozy Earth sheets is just so soft. There's no other word to describe it other than butter. I mean, literally, you just feel smooth and like a queen or king. And they're incredible. And now I'm going to have to stock my whole house with Cozy Earth sheets, not, of course, bubble blankets as well, cuddle bubble blankets as well. And right now, we should mention they are having a sale on pajamas. Again, they're famous pajamas that sold out over the holiday break. Buy one, get one for your special someone before Valentine's Day. You've only got a few more days, guys. This ends, I believe, on February 8th. So go to cozyearth.com and order your special someone and yourself some pajamas. Use our code Huddle BOGO, HUDDLE BOGO. That stands for buy one, get one. And just a personal note, I asked my husband, I was like, what am I going to get you for Valentine's Day? Because the man, I swear, he doesn't ever want anything. I'm the opposite. I want everything. And he's like, go buy yourself some Cozy Earth pajamas.
You know what? Win-win. You get one, he gets one.
There you go. Okay, guys, before we jump in, do me a favor. Again, our whole call out this week, send the live right now to 5 people you think would like the show, people who love politics. We really appreciate it. Getting those live numbers up helps us throughout the day. More people see the show, and that obviously is what we want. So do me a favor and do that right now. Let's jump right in. Okay, so Minnesota ICE budget talks. The president did a pre-taped interview for the traditional Super Bowl interview that he gives over the weekend. Yesterday, he sat down with NBC and he said something that caught a lot of people's attention. Let's pull up that first element and play it.
Minneapolis, what did you learn?
I learned that maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch, but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals. But look, I've called the people. I've called the governor. I've called the mayor, spoke to them, had great conversations with them. And then I see them ranting and raving out there, literally as though a call wasn't made.
In case you didn't catch that, he was asked specifically, what did you learn from the experience in Minnesota? And he mentioned perhaps he should have had a, quote, softer touch. I mean, this is a rare moment of introspection from the president. Sean, I can think of a couple times he said he made the wrong decision about hiring, after, Rex Tillerson or Jerome Powell. These are the wrong picks. I made the wrong decision. But I can't think of a time when I've heard him admit that maybe he would have done something a little different, or he did it a little not quite the right strategy there. What do you make of what he said?
I actually thought it was great for a number of reasons. For exactly as you point out, that it's not often. It was how he did it too.
The tone.
He didn't rush to a judgment. And it's funny because when this clip happened, you guys know sometimes I go to places that not everyone else goes. And if you go on and play that clip, he says to Tom Yamas, that may be the best question you've asked. And the reason this is so fun is that when I got out, when I started my first show, they gave me some media training on how to be a host. And they said 2 things that are interesting. Go watch people that you like that are hosts and how they ask questions, and ask yourself, what do you like about how they do it? And one of the things that was an overarching thread is there are some hosts that ask stem winder questions. What was it that you were thinking in that moment back in 42? Was it that you were thinking this? Was it, and the question's longer than the response, and it takes the person. A good host, I've learned, asks a very simple question. And what Tom Yamas did yesterday was just say, what did you learn? He didn't say, do you regret any of your actions with ICE because of the following? He asked a simple question. And it goes to my second point, which is how you address the president. He'll answer, as we've seen, any question, anytime. I give Tom Yamas, and you guys know, anyone who watches this, I don't give out accolades and I grade on a curve when it comes to the media. But I thought he did a good job because of how he approached this, which is you want the subject to think about the answer they're giving you as opposed to predetermine it. Do you regret how bad you bungled this issue, or what, like you're now you've limited the response. So I think it was a really great interview, not only because of how the president answers, but I give Tom Yamas credit for how he approached it.
In the background here, there was an announcement yesterday that they're polling 700 ICE officials out of Minnesota. The question I have for you, Dan,
do you know why? I mean, so again, remember,
in return for
not just in return, right? Because one of the reasons they had to double down was because in most cities they get help from the cops. So they go in, they do an operation. The local PD will do crowd control, all of the stuff, the advance. They weren't getting that support in Minneapolis, and so they had to do it themselves. So they've come to an agreement with the county police and others to say, if you do this, we'll pull the guys out. There's, let's call it 1,000 agents. The 2,000 other folks were in support of those 1,000. So part of what they're pulling back is the support mechanism.
The question I have, though, is do Democrats recognize what he's doing here in terms of extending an olive branch, Dan? Because I was looking at some of the reaction on this. There's a Minnesota state senator, Scott Dibble, was asked about this, and he said, oh, we now only have 2,300 aggressive, brutal, cosplaying soldiers busting into people's home, brutalizing people on the streets and killing civilians. Words mean nothing. We have evidence. I mean, are there any Democrats who are going to see what he is doing in trying to at least extend an olive branch here?
Well, there's two ways to look at this. So one, what you just read from the Minnesota, I think you said state senator, is
state senator, yes.
Right. I mean, that is a ridiculous set of words, and he ought to be ashamed. But there's a second part of this, which is you can say that there's plenty of times where Trump has been asked a simple question, and he either, as he likes to say, do the weave, or he sees it as a chance for full frontal confrontation. The reason I think a lot of Democrats believe he's saying what he is going to go to the broader question, which is he's 20 and in some instances 30 points underwater on this issue. He has huge problems. It is fundamentally unpopular in this country. I don't want to hear about MAGA. If MAGA leaves Trump, it's the end of the game, right? Most of MAGA is sticking with him. But independents, Latinos, these people who form the new part of his coalition are hemorrhaging out. So Democrats say, we have him on the run. Now, the risk is you overplay your hand, right? But when you look at the 10 demands, I'm curious, which one of those do you think is totally outrageously unacceptable? Because I think they've pulled them. In fact, I know they've pulled them. They've tested them.
Wow. They
know the country is with them. So, yeah, you're right. The risk is that Minnesota state senator becomes the spokesperson. But if you can, you got to just push those people aside. The politics are on our side.
I have to say, though, and this is a good pivot to this, Dan, these 10 demands that Democratic leaders released last night for a deal. This just tells me how hard it's going to be. They might have pulled them and found that they are popular with the vast majority of the public. But there are things in here that they are not going to get. Republicans won't give it to them. I mean, the ban on face masks, there's a requirement that agents not just identify themselves with a number, which we've talked about on here.
Yep.
Totally makes sense. But with a name, then that makes it easier to find, right? There are,
Wait, hold on a second. Police and other federal agencies have that. That's standard protocol.
But police, I mean, there's an issue, though, with agents being their whole families being harassed, right?
Police, just keep going through it. Law enforcement has this.
Has what?
The names on the names on the tags.
Oh, sure. No.
That's not one of the new demands, Sean.
So first of all, that's not entirely true. A lot of officers now just wear a badge number, which, as I've said all week long, there's a difference. I'd be willing to say Officer 567, but to say Smith, where you can start to identify this person for the purpose of doxing, is insane.
But Sean, the purpose of doxing is not what most Americans are thinking about.
I don't care what they're thinking about. I care about protecting the law enforcement officers.
So should every policeman and so play it out. Should every federal agency have their names taken off?
I think that if an officer feels like they're being targeted and wants to have another, like, for example, this is silly. In Virginia, you have the option on your license to have a random number used as opposed to like your certificate, because you don't want. I don't have a problem with that.
That's ID.
Why does it matter if the officer says Turrentine or 567?
Look, again, play this out. I think where the Democrats are coming from is ICE has somehow been exempted from all these protocols.
No, that's just not true.
Every other agency has.
But police officers all over the country don't have exemptions where they wear a number or a badge number.
Okay, so this is an example. This is an example of why this is going to be contentious, right? But it's not the only thing. There are things in here that I think both sides can agree on, right? Like mandatory use of body cameras. I can see Republicans giving on that. But the mandating judicial warrants, clearly the leadership has drawn a hard line on that. Again, Dan, you're right. Like, you know,
leadership
want warrants, judicial warrants.
But
look, there's another one that surprised me in here, and that is no touch zones, right? No law enforcement at medical facilities, churches, schools, outside courts, or polling places. Like, I could see this. I could be wrong. Sean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I could see that being, something.
I think there's a difference. Churches, places of worship. In fact, there's a long history of churches being places of refuge.
Right? For sure.
By the way, it is ironic that they demand that those be places that can't get touched, and yet not one of them said anything about Don Lemon storming a church.
I agree.
Well, I mean, but there's the problem I have with this is they're literally saying, here's where you should go hide. Like it's a map.
Well, the other way to look at that is
that was my reaction too.
Yeah, is that when people need medical care, they go. Kids should go to school. What's happening? And this is the problem for the right now. You have all these talking points, right? Trump says they're all hideous criminals. Well, the problem is it's now beyond that. It's landscapers. It's the waiter. It's the housekeeper. So the problem you have now is every town has these stories. 30% decline in school attendance. Why? People are afraid to send their kids to school. People aren't going to hospitals when they need medical care because they're afraid they're going to get picked up by ICE. So society is beginning to have these problems. Now, you can say, good, ICE should pick people up. But this is the public policy debate that I think we will win if it becomes about this.
So I just real quick, I've got a brand new polling memo in my hand.
Who's that from?
Signal polling. Okay, just came out. Here's the answer. The question: do you believe that individuals who have entered the United States without legal permission have broken the law? 73% yes. Okay.
Right.
Now here's the thing. What this debate boils down to, when you go to the crosstabs, Republicans 85, 90% yes. Independents 50 to 60% yes. Democrats 90-10 no. This is not Americans support. This is Democrats don't support that. Okay. I mean, how much of a problem is illegal immigration in the United States? 64% of all Americans believe it's a problem. Do you support or oppose those deported illegally in the United States back to the country of origin? 61% of all Americans.
Sean,
right?
You know what this is, though? This is like, do you like apple pie? 90% of America likes apple pie. Now put in the next question. Do you want ICE in your neighborhood? This is like, do you like your congressperson? Yes. Do you like Congress? I hate it. Right? No. So that poll is so misleading. In fact, my advice is you guys should take that poll and tell yourselves all day long, this is a winning issue.
Okay. I think the nuance to me is what the president said yesterday. How we execute that matters. Right.
Okay, you know what? I encourage every Republican to go out there and say, in our community, we are going after housekeepers, landscapers, and waiters. You won't do it. Right. The only thing you will say is rapists, criminals, and murderers because it tests well.
Right.
But the problem you have is Americans know it's not true anymore.
If you're going to go after the legitimacy of the poll and how it was asked, think about what you just did. They're not going after landscapers and housekeepers. They're going after people who are in the country illegally. Not all housekeepers are here illegally.
Not all
landscapers are here illegally.
Of
but
course.
when you change the words too, that changes the. I mean, you can't say going after.
Fine. I will amend my remarks. The illegal landscaper, the illegal housekeeper, the illegal babysitter. Again, it's so unpopular in red America that I actually, in Texas, you should run ads on that. Please, I beg you.
I want to bring up the reaction from one top Republican who was involved in shutdown negotiations. Last time, she's sort of has this reputation for working with Democrats on things like healthcare, or at least trying to hash out a deal. Senator Katie Britt. This is the second element we have here is her tweet. She took a look at this list and said, no. She called it a ridiculous Christmas list of demands for the press. Said this is not negotiating in good faith, and this is not what the American people want. I know, Dan, you're saying these things, Democrats pulled them. They're popular. But like when I read this list, I was like, okay, this is just like shows me that there is not going to be a deal by next week. Because if anything, Democrats are hardening their position at a time when the president is clearly softening his language here.
No, I mean, look, I think I said it yesterday, and for all the back and forth Sean and I just had, Democrats do not want to shut the government down. Ultimately, they want a deal. And I think Trump, no, look, it even was reported yesterday in their Senate caucus lunch. Democrats said, we do not want a shutdown over this.
But that's there. It was more nuanced than that in that story, Dan. It said they don't want Republicans to frame this as an immigration issue because they think that's what they're going to do on that. They want it to be framed as a law and order issue.
Of course, and I want to be 6'4". Like we can tell ourselves
that. But that doesn't tell me that they don't want to shut down. I'm not convinced that they don't want to shut down. But continue, please.
I think they do. I think if you asked the DSCC, do we want a shutdown? If you ask the moderate Democrats, do we want in the House? If you ask the candidates in those targeted seats, they want to stand on principle. They're going to put these lists out. But I believe right now that Donald Trump, John Thune and Mike Johnson and Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer all see an incentive to get a deal. They both see risk. So I think, ultimately, I do think there might be a shutdown, but I think it will be for 3 or 4 days. This is not going to be a 1 month dig in, march off the cliff like, Ted Cruz in 2013, what was it? 13, 11, something like that.
13.
Mark that right there. Final thoughts, Sean, or we'll move on.
Yeah, I would just say, look, I think what was surprising to me is the level of specificity the Democrats put on that list. They didn't just write no masks. They wrote, a couple lines afterwards. And that makes digging out of the hole harder because you've now sold your base on like the why, right? So it's harder to accept a compromise when you've gotten into a level of specificity and detail that, so that's what I found surprising about that. And I think might ultimately make this more complicated for the Democrats, because if you're the base and you get excited about that list, when it comes to compromising and they say, you made a strong case about masks, how did you cave on this, right? Yep. So I think that was interesting. Yeah. My only piece of advice for Katie Britt, and I love her to death, especially because her husband was a former New England Patriot, is please don't ever associate Christmas lists and those Democrats.
Except we have the church on our side on this issue.
Oh boy, you too. One last thing, though, I want to point out on this in terms of these demands. Just remember, a couple days ago, Schumer had 4 demands that he put out, and now there are 10. I mean, again, Dan, you talked yesterday about the split between Schumer and Jeffries. Clearly, they have gotten in a room, and now that they've sort of like hashed out these 10. Yeah. But like Schumer had already put out demands, and now that they're a little different, and I don't know. I feel like Dems are moving the opposite direction, away from a deal, not toward one.
I agree.
We'll see.
And also, by the way, I will say this, just total inside baseball.
Sure.
Getting an agreement on 10 things, on any things, like I remember back, I mean, this is when I was really early in politics, but like when you hear the backstory of the contract with America and whittling it down to 10 issues. And then we did something at the RNC under Ryan's, what it was called, like I can't even remember the name, but it was like no one ever is in agreement if you can't drive the train by yourself. So I actually, again, part of like sometimes to realize that those guys got 10 things on a list together is actually somewhat of a significant accomplishment for politicians.
Let's talk about Republicans' Latino problem. So there's, like I said at the top, been a ton of stories the past couple of days about Republicans bleeding with Hispanic voters, who are obviously a key part of their coalition in 2024. Super problematic for the midterms. This morning, Congresswoman Maria Salazar of Florida sounding the alarm, saying Hispanics have soured on Trump's immigration enforcement. Carlos Jimenez saying the administration is going, quote, beyond what people voted for in terms of immigration. First of all, Sean, do you agree with that? What they're saying here, that the president is going beyond what voters actually want? And then second of all, like, what do Republicans do to fix this?
So first of all, I think there's a lot more work that needs to get done understanding where people stand. I don't, with all due respect to the Congresswoman, she has been sort of a leader in the amnesty movement. So that's not someone I look to.
Zing.
I don't think anyone in MAGA world is looking to her to get a pulse of where Hispanics are.
But she knows the community so well.
She knows her community. And I think, frankly, I would argue that when you look at South Florida and what we've done for the Venezuelans, what we're talking about with Cuba, and potentially,
I had the same thought.
I like I told you guys, anecdotally, I've heard many stories of people saying we love what the president's doing for regime change, and finally, I might be able to go back to my place of birth or my parents' place. I mean, so I think that it's a little hyperbolic to maybe say that we're screwed. I think look, like anything in politics, it's worth looking at. I think we need to be sensitive to it. But two things are important. One, remember when people talk about Hispanics, they're not monolithic. You've got Mexican Americans, you've got Cubans, you've got South Americans. They're like that come from Colombia or
Venezuela.
So there is, to say that, and you think about like the districts in Denver that have a heavy Hispanic population. You've got Texas, which is obviously more Mexican, Southern California. I mean, so I think maybe what Carlos Jimenez and Maria Salazar talk about in South Florida, maybe, but I would argue that I'd be interested in see what the polling says there, because you talk about, go ask Mario Diaz-Balart what the Cubans think, and I don't know if he would share that. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't.
Can I just say one thing before I come to Dan, because I know Dan has many thoughts on this, but like the amount, like it is really hard for people like Salazar to come out and criticize the administration, right? She just she just doesn't. And so when you actually do have someone like her, who by the way is super grateful to what the president did on Venezuela, right? She was encouraging him to do that. She loves it, and yet she still feels the need to come out and send this warning. I mean, that says something to me. But Dan, you are smiling while Sean was sort of dismissing her concerns.
Yep.
I'm sure you're happy that, Republicans wouldn't take them.
I mean, look,
heart, maybe.
At some point you ask yourself, how many people have to tell us we have a problem? Karl Rove wrote about this weeks ago. Look at what voters said in the Texas special. There was two issues that they cited repeatedly. One, which was very parochial, too much kind of religious influence in schools and kind of like the cultural issues going too far, right? That's parochial. The other issue was immigration. What are they saying in Arizona is the problem? What is the issue in Georgia? All these states, it's Republicans, not Democrats, saying, the story in the Wall Street Journal today, Allentown, Pennsylvania, the swingiest of the swingiest state where Trump overperformed. There is a sizable Latino community. A lot of it's Puerto Rican. Go back to the garbage comment right before the election. People were talking about Allentown and Trump's need to kind of, get on top of this. All saying the same thing. We supported Trump for two reasons: the economy and immigration. We were supportive of the criminals, what Sean was saying. But all these people, all these Latinos keep saying in focus groups and polls, it's gone beyond criminals. And we did not think that was going to happen. And we have a problem. So for me, the issue is, it goes back to Trump barely won in 16, barely lost in 20, and barely won in 24. If you look at the new coalition he built in 24, it was Latinos, men in particular, young Black men, young voters. We're not playing it, but there's a thing on social media. It wasn't WWE, but some kind of UFC style event. Primarily men, right? This is the crowd that Trump would go to these type of events and he gets standing ovations. They were chanting F blank ice. Okay. In Las Vegas, swing state, Republicans are very, excited about the progress they've made over the last decade. Again, if you keep telling yourself we don't have a problem, great. But every piece of your own data is screaming,
No.
This is like a crisis.
So let me just make one point, because I don't want to. I never said I'm dismissive of it. What I said is like anything
That's
else,
true. It's
that
true.
we need to look like. But I don't take one or two people. Like, look, if the data suggests it, then we have a problem. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that Dan, you referenced the Puerto Rican issue from that comedian at Madison Square Garden. And everybody said Trump was left for dead. There's no way. And then he wins.
Yeah.
So I call me a little skeptical every time a bunch of elitists in the media say that we have a problem that they've been wrong on for 10 years. I'm all for, listen, it's like anything else. Something's wrong. What do? You say, hey, that's worth going to the doctor, do some tests. I'm all for it. But I just don't take the word of a bunch of people who are pushing amnesty or in the Wall Street Journal. That's not what my bellwether is right now. So I think it's worth looking at. I think the party should be nervous going into a midterm where you have a 1 or 2 seat majority in both chambers. So I'm very open to examining what we need to do to win. Don't get me wrong. But I think I don't get hyperbolic anymore because some dude in the Wall Street Journal tees off.
Wow, it's way more than that. But here's the bigger fundamental issue. Winning campaigns appeal to their base in the middle, right? It's not an either or. The winner usually figures out a way to do both. And the challenge for Trump right now, if I'm James Blair and I'm Susie, and I think even Donald Trump, because he's a political animal, you say to yourself, the feedback we're getting from our own allies is including in the business community, by the way, this is not just Latinos, you got to dial back immigration. So Trump is trying to figure out how to do it without turning off the Steve Bannons in your own base. And that is the needle he has to try to thread, I think, Sean, over the next 10 months. You got to bring the Latinos back and keep the base excited, because right now you have both a deflating base. They're still with them, but as you keep saying, Sean, the enthusiasm is not where you want it. And the new part of your coalition's leaving.
Right.
Let's talk about New Jersey. Special election today. So nearly a dozen Democrats are facing off to replace Mikey Sherrill, top candidate because of his sort of name recognition. Former Congressman Tom Malinowski, considered the front runner for a really long time, but is now going up against AIPAC. And one of the interesting things about this race is this test case for AIPAC and whether they can sort of enforce this zero tolerance policy on Democrats who they think are wavering in their support of Israel. Just sort of a reminder for folks, they supported Malinowski for a really long time, big supporter of Israel. But more recently, as the Democratic Party has sort of changed on this, he said he is open to conditioning aid to Israel. So they're trying to make an example of him. The question is, will it work? And will other Democrats get the message, Dan?
So, I mean, this is so fascinating because I don't know if it's going to work. We're going to find out today, but they've spent about $3 million in the last 3 weeks, which in a Democratic-only special election is stunning. The problem, I think, for AIPAC, and this is, I hope they recognize this as someone who, is a supporter of Israel in the macro. A relationship cannot survive if it is based solely on fear. And this idea that if I rank the spectrum of Democratic, kind of abandonment of Israel, Malinowski's like way over near the middle, right? He's still a firm supporter of Israel. He just thinks some aid, let's talk about conditioning. He is not AOC and like pro-Palestinian and, kind of like F them. To go after someone, what the party has taken away is the base has said, oh my God, they are so out of control. We're like doubling down in our opposition. And the moderates that they hope would sit up in their chair and say, ooh, I better not open my mouth, are like, are you kidding me? Like, this is what you're spending all this money on that guy in this race? Mm-hmm. So I think AIPAC made a strategic, huge miscalculation. They may win this battle, but they're continuing to lose the bigger war within the Democratic Party. And in the long run, you can't lose an entire party, and you have problems with Republicans too. I don't get what Israel's doing. From a public affairs standpoint domestically in the United States, I don't get it.
Yeah, look, I would say this. I think what they're doing is they recognize this is a safe seat. So they're saying, hey, short term, get the seat. then whoever X is, if we can get Malinowski across the finish line, he'll be there for 10, 15, 20 years, right? Because he came. Okay. So I think they're investing in the short term, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, Israel has to understand. I've equated this to trade in the past. People took the issue for granted forever. And then slowly it started to attrit to the point where it wasn't just a bipartisan issue, then became a Republican issue. And now it's just, if you're a big supporter of trade, you're in the minority. And no one addressed it for years because they thought it's no big deal. Israel has to understand that this old sort of message of we're your greatest ally in the Middle East, the democratic foothold among a lot of precarious neighbors, is not holding the way it used to. And that there is an understanding of, hey, we're $38 trillion in debt. I agree with you. They need to do a better job of really reaching out to younger Americans in particular. Our generation, you've either got us or you don't. But these younger folks who believe that they don't get why we're doing this, or they disagree with how the Palestinians are being treated, they got some serious PR work to do. I will say the one last thing, Dan, that I find fascinating about this, right? I've said it all along. Special elections are special. I'm not going to read too much into this, but this is a bit of a power struggle. AIPAC coming in from Malinowski. And then here's the thing. Phil Murphy, the former governor, didn't back the lieutenant governor, backed Gill, which I was sort of like, again, I'm sure there's some personality issues, but that's the Essex County executive. I was like, this is like, there's a lot of behind. I mean, it's very New Jersey. It's like
very much.
You didn't come to my Christmas party, and but like,
and then you have AOC backing another candidate. So
correct.
A lot of different.
What is interesting? Again, sometimes people take too much out of a race.
Yeah,
and it's going to be interesting because people will claim power and a win out of this. So if Phil Murphy's candidate Gill wins, they'll say that he is a power. If AOC's candidate wins, she'll say, "See, I was the deciding." And obviously with AIPAC, the same thing behind Malinowski. But I'm just
no, they're against Malinowski. They're trying to take him out.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like for them, it's like, which is just, and it's amazing because one of the candidates is so left against Israel. I mean, it's just,
and yet they chose to go after
Malinowski because I think they thought he would win. And they could get him to kind of, put a straitjacket on him. And instead, my God, if he wins, AIPAC it's even worse for them.
Not to make this go full circle to the top of the show, but another thing Malinowski is getting hit on is backing a bipartisan funding bill for DHS, which again shows you where the party is right now. Okay. All right, let's move on. This is something that's very hot on the right. Look, Sean's over there.
And the left a little bit. Yeah, I wouldn't just limit it to the right.
Well, I was going to say, it sounds like people in New York are talking a lot about this.
Oh,
right, yeah. Okay, so first let's pull up Sean's tweet here. Basically, yesterday, the New York City Police Department released this body camera footage showing the moment an officer shot this man who was apparently mentally ill at the moment, but charging him with a knife. Why does it matter? It matters because Mamdani has basically said that the police needs to be investigated, right? Sided with the guy over him.
Went to the hospital, the jail.
The guy.
Went to the jail to visit the criminal and express sympathy for the criminal.
So here's Sean, for those of you who are listening to this. I pulled up a sheet. Sean tweeting off on Twitter or sounding off on Twitter. Welcome to the Democratic Party. Concerns for the criminal over the cop. And then let's show the body camera footage right now of what happened.
How you doing?
Are you called?
So here you have the police coming to this house.
You coming?
He asks to come in.
Oh my God!
Yes,
You're fine. Good.
And by the way, she called the family called the cops on that. They called the cops to ask for help
over a domestic dispute.
Yep.
Baba, no! Hey, put the knife down! Put the knife down!
Picking up a knife, coming at the cops. He's saying, "Put the gun down. Put the gun down." He's backing away. He's closing the door to put distance between himself and the individual. The guy comes through the door, and then 4 shots right there.
Put the knife down! Drop the knife! Drop the knife!
So this is what happened. We can come out of that.
That's fine.
Again,
And as you said, I spoke with the child
Here's
with the
Mamdani, real
family,
quick.
and I visited Chavez in the hospital. And there is no family should have to endure this kind of pain.
You know how insane that is? No family. The family called the cops. Like, I don't understand. To me, this is one of the most insane things. The family calls the cops. The police are 100% following protocol. They ask to come in. They come in. The woman's like, here he is. They ask him to stop. He continues to lunge at them. They fire. He still won't put down the knife. And Mondami sides and says the family shouldn't have to put up with this. Are you kidding?
Dan, you said people are talking about this a lot.
Yeah, I mean, look, Sean is right. I think the problem for Mondani is obviously there's always been this worry in New York that he is anti-police. And I think there's this incident in another one where on a subway platform where the police were called to respond to an incident and shots ended up being fired. And Mondani's reaction to both has been publicly, we're going to investigate the police to see what happened, right? In most instances, you would say, thank you, NYPD, for showing up. Thank you for putting your life on the line to stop A, B, C, or D. Now, if evidence comes out that they did something wrong, obviously, and NYPD always does an investigation. Whenever shots are fired, period, it's standard protocol. But what you're seeing here is the power of images. Mondani rushed out to kind of basically throw the NYPD under the bus, as in like the implication was they used excessive force they shouldn't use. Sounds like the immigration debate, right? The body cam shows basically NYPD. This is why we have NYPD. This is why we love the NYPD. They showed up, they knocked, they asked if they could come in. They're there because the woman called the cops because of a domestic dispute with her husband. She asked them to come in. He lunges
not with
at
the
them.
kid. It was about a dispute with the husband and not the guy.
What do you mean with the guy?
Oh, was the guy with the knife her husband or her kid? I thought the guy with the knife.
Oh, I'm sorry. Whether it was the child or husband. I mean,
digress.
it's a domestic, as in like within the house, right?
Right.
So it's just it's the problem is I think Mondani truly is skeptical of the police, and this goes to the broader issue for the Democratic Party. This goes to the immigration and going too far. If people think we are anti-law enforcement, if they think we believe ICE should not exist, if we believe that police are kind of as a rule too rough, right, need to be softer, not kind of dealing with the world as it is, we will be in trouble. Yeah. We will be in trouble. And if you're Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries, this is not a video that you want to have to talk about.
Yeah,
but you're going.
Luckily, no one from the media will ask them.
The New York press will.
but I think like here's why I hope to God the New York PD says, you know what, great, we're no longer defending you, like, and just walking.
No. I hope they don't. I look. Swirling over this is Mondani endorsed Hochul yesterday, and that dynamic between the two of them. Look, it's rough. It's a rough time in New York City. We'll see what Mondani does.
Yeah.
In any other world, though, everyone would be getting asked about this, like
Correct.
On the Hill, having a microphone. It's just again, this goes back to why I think the press is so negligent. Like the idea that maybe some Gracie Mansion press will ask, but that's it. It's really pathetic that people like why isn't AOC being asked about this? This is her guy. Like ask Bernie Sanders, do you agree with what's happening? I mean,
you don't think there's any okay, so I get you can't your gut reaction cannot be to be against cops, right? And clearly Mamdani is sort of leaning into the base by trying to stick it to the NYPD and claim that they're the ones with the problem. But do you think that overall this situation presents a very difficult dynamic where you do have someone in mental health crisis, and what do you do and how do you address that, and what is the way to encounter someone like that? That's a different set of questions, but like when I watched this, my reaction was also like, oh, this is one of those situations where this is just not good. Like,
well, but the problem is hindsight's 2020. So if you said, all right, look, the first phone call of 911 on the back end is to the mental health specialist, okay? And they show up. All right. Now, what happens when the person has a gun and shoots the mental health? Well, why wasn't the NYPD there?
Yes.
I was going to say the cops.
It is right. In an ideal world, every NYPD officer would have a psychologist with them, and you could tag team every situation in real time. But you just can't to my knowledge, unless you're going to tax us at 95%, it's just not possible.
But also, I wouldn't look. Just play this out for. I mean, I think this is like one of those cocktail conversations. Like, if you're the psychologist, would you walk into that? I'd be like, hey, the guy's got a knife. I'm out of here. Like, I
agree with you.
Where they go, oh, you know what? We just need to talk to the guy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, who would? I'm sorry. There's no. They go. Can we get a cop here with a gun to shoot him?
Yeah, I agree.
I don't understand what world people live in sometimes when they go, we just need to talk the dude down. He's got a knife. He's coming.
Well, but my question, Sean, was, did he have the knife before the cop came, or was this an escalate? You know what I mean? I'm not saying the cop shouldn't have come. The cop had to come. The guy was off his rocker, clearly.
Hold on. The cops came because she called them. She asked the police to please come.
Right. No, I know. I'm not saying she shouldn't have. I'm just saying, like, this mental health is like, it's tricky. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like,
I'm 100%.
These people are out of their minds. And anyway, I'm gonna continue.
Right, but at some point, I get it. But
Yeah.
at some point, like, you ask, hey, the guy wasn't aggressive. He didn't the cop was like, hey, put the knife down. He didn't even say, like, I don't know what difference it would have mattered how many degrees he had in psychology. Like, that wasn't a factor here. It wasn't like it escalated quick.
Yeah.
I mean, and from the cop standpoint, it was that individual got a weapon.
Literally came right at him. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Okay, let's talk about journalism layoffs, because the big talk here at DC was about Washington Post laying off 30% of their staff yesterday. 30%. 300 journalists out of 800 got rid of their sports desk, their staff photographers, a lot of folks who were on the international desk and the local desk. Huge cuts. And, you know, this is obviously a trend we're seeing in media right now because of all the changes. But I just want to start with, like, a lot of people on the right seem to be like sort of celebrating this. I would just say, you know, what the HE double hockey sticks is wrong with you, because number one, these are people's jobs. Like, we shouldn't be celebrating anyone losing their jobs. But number two, as much as you want to criticize the media for being left-leaning, go ahead. Totally 100% get it and understand the criticism. And I don't disagree with the criticism either. But, like, it is important for democracy to have a healthy press, a healthy and, you know, thriving press. And unfortunately, that's not happening right now because of all the changes we're seeing in media right now. And, you know, this is just the latest example. And I don't think it's very unfortunate, in my view.
Well, I think the challenge is, the other part that you left out is they're losing $100 million a year.
Uh-oh, we lost Dan's audio again.
Oh, no, really?
No,
Okay, so they're losing $140 million.
I only hit the mute button once today.
Yes. I mean, you're losing $100 million a year. The Wall Street Journal's thriving. Some online, you know, the Huddle is thriving.
New York Times is doing very, very well.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I think the problem is some of the criticism is like, Bezos should float the losses because it's the right thing to do. Are you out of your mind? Like,
oh my God, Dan, what's going on? Are you becoming a
Republican? I mean, it's the idea that you should float a loss. I think the problem is they became so one-sided that they turned off a significant part of the marketplace. That is,
here's where I'm going to interject on
capitalism.
This. What was the single biggest event that led to people canceling their subscriptions of the
Kamala Harris thing? Yeah.
Correct. It was Bezos spiking an endorsement by the Washington Post editorial board of Kamala Harris. But that had nothing to do with catering to the left. That was actually catering to the right.
Well, but
and that made them.
Why did they spike in the first place? Go back.
But the problem there goes to the classic business issue, which is what we talked about earlier with Sean with the Republican coalition. You can't fire your existing customer base and try to get new ones. That is bad business. So you're right. That kind of was like the nail in the coffin of losing your existing customers. But even before they did that, they were losing money. That they're losing more money now. But the business model of a lot of local papers is not working anymore.
For sure.
What is working is independent journalism. People like Nick Shirley, others. Look, we can all laugh and roll our eyes. The barrier to entry is nothing. And to me, it's a business case study in failure, period.
So let me just, this is where I spoke to Florida International University about a year ago to their journalism school. Very similar question. They said, what do you think about the decline in journalism? And I said, journalism is not declining. It's thriving. The free press, Dan mentioned it all. I mean, there's plenty of people doing journalism. The Washington Post was a flawed business model, right? It was bloated. It was big. Go look at how big their headquarters is. They just redid it. I mean, they spend a godforsaken amount of money. And Jeff Bezos is literally, to Dan's point, floating it. They're unsustainable. And instead of addressing it, right? I mean, I was out with a business last night, a bunch of CEOs. They were talking about, they got brought into a company that had 220 employees. They brought it down to 12, rebuilt it. It's now at 52 and almost profitable, right? The point is, any business at some point has to make money. The Washington Post is an unsustainable business model. Okay. Right. And so they got rid of dead weight. They're still existing, but at some point you can't keep paying people astronomical salaries.
A lot of people are not making astronomical. A lot of people go into journalism knowing they will make no money, very little money.
Well, you know what? Plenty of them are making doing just fine with TV contracts, all these other sites. But here's the bigger, broader point. This is Nancy Pelosi's quote last night at the press dinner. A free press cannot fulfill its mission if it's starved of the resources it needs to survive. And when newsrooms are weakened, our republic is weakened with them. It's amazing that a woman's made so much in the stock market doesn't understand capitalism. The bottom line is the Washington Post is a bad business model. A billionaire kept it alive, as a billionaire is keeping the LA Times alive, by the way.
Correct.
All of these rich people are floating this. It's not sustainable. But journalism is not dying.
Right.
Bad
And I think
one-sided journalism, maybe.
Think about it.
I clearly agree with you about how they were running the business. Even people like Jim Vandehei at Axios would totally agree with you that they have not been running. You have to change and figure out how to sort of adjust to this age of, people digesting their news in different ways, and across the board, journalists, mainstream media has just not done that in general. It's been a real issue. My point is that smacking down on people who lost their jobs because
sure.
No. And by the way, I'm
not saying you're doing that, but I've seen a lot of it online and it's disgusting.
But I will say this, they don't help themselves when they set up a GoFundMe last night to go get drinks. They literally put, we're going to have drinks. Can you send us money? Guys, you're not helping the cause. Like I said, I don't like anybody losing their job. Some of them I'm sure have families that, or can't pay their rent. And I feel bad. I really do. I don't want any, but at the same time, these guys have not handled it well. They're not doing their own PR well.
I want to make one more case on this. And that is, we talk about the health of new media and how that is sort of filling a void. And that is true, and that's good. Obviously it helps people like us, but there are certain things that institutions can do and traditionally have had the money to do and can support that, one person startups just cannot. Here's a good example. Wanting to fly with the president. Literally, I cannot afford it. Just can't do it. If I was at the Washington Post or at an institution, they will fund you going on Air Force One and interviewing the president, or, foreign coverage of some sort, like sending a correspondent to Ukraine. I mean, this is why it is good to have these sort of institutions who can pay for stuff like that, right? We cannot, our team could not pick up and go to Ukraine. Not that we would want to, but it's
doing
just
but you know what though?
As a small individual.
But I'm going to push back for a second. So 20 years ago, if I wanted to know what was happening in Ukraine, I would have waited for the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times because they had somebody over there. If I want to now know what's happening, I'll read the, Warsaw Daily, and I'll look at the people who are on the ground, and I can look at Russian, news. I can look at French news. I can get it anywhere. If I want to know what's happening in politics, I used to wait for Dan Balls on Sunday morning. Must read every Sunday morning.
That's kind of cute, actually.
I'll watch the Huddle. I'll watch whatever. I'll listen to a podcast. I'll do it. If I want sports, why does the Washington Post need somebody at the Super Bowl or the Olympics, which was the employees were up in arms? Even ESPN is collapsing because you don't watch SportsCenter anymore. I get the clips here in real time from the New York Knicks sent to me within 5 seconds of Jalen Brunson hitting a basket. So the world is changing, and the idea that these institutions need to float this, the business model is collapsing. It's just collapsed. The world as it is and the world you wish it would be. And the idea that rich people should do this as a public good. So
or taxpayers.
Right. Then what you're saying is,
I'm not making
okay,
a case
because
for
the next
taxpayers.
iteration of that is, what are your politics?
No, it has to be a sustainable business model. Nobody is saying that journalism shouldn't be. I'm not making that argument. I'm just saying that these companies do play
But
a
Rachel,
role.
go look at like what, again, I don't fully agree with everything, but like Semaphore, what Ben Smith did there, they did a capital raise. They've got plenty of money. You know, I mean, like we've talked before about what the folks at Puck are doing to cover Congress, right? They're about to get bought for some ungodly amount of money. They put themselves, I mean, like again, the model just has got to change. And these
For sure. I don't
outlets-
disagree. I don't disagree that the model has got to change, but I just, you know, there are these institutions play roles, and it's good if they're healthy, and they're not right now, which is like,
well, the Journal and the
they need to
Times
change.
are. The Journal and the Times are. But by the way, what's supporting the New York Times? Wordle, the cooking app. I'm serious. That's what's paying the bills at the Times.
I feel like they just announced like several million more new subscribers for last year. I mean, they're doing well. The New York Times is doing very well from a business standpoint. They figured something out. Okay, let's take some questions. Okay. What are the chances the GOP holds the North Carolina and Maine Senate seats while also picking up a seat from Georgia or New Hampshire? Essentially 2018 2.0, where they lose the House but add to their margins in the Senate.
Very, very low odds. I think if it were today, Democrats win North Carolina, they win Maine, they hold Georgia, they hold North Carolina. To me, the question now is what happens in Texas, what happens in Alaska, and Ohio. By the way, Ohio is the one place. Sherrod Brown's numbers are not great. I would have thought they would have been better by now. And I've heard different reasons why. That may be the one state that you hold.
All right, so I'll run through this. Maine, Susan Collins, I think is a hold. She always pulls it out at the end. She's well known.
True.
She's got money, and the Dems have a contentious primary. She holds that. Georgia, I would say right now is probably a Dem hold, but I also feel like we have to see who the Republican nominee is and how brutal that primary gets and how much money they get. They both have, all three of them have roughly between 1.5 and $1 million. That's not great, and they'll go at each other. So how they come out of that primary is going to matter before I judge. But if I had to pick today, I'd say Dem hold. New Hampshire, Dem hold. I think Pappas pulls this thing out. North Carolina, to me, has always been the big bellwether test. I think Dems, Roy Cooper is going to be a strong candidate just because he's got name recognition serving as governor. From what I gather, fairly well liked, but I think Michael Whatley has, if the Trump organization, writ large, MAGA Inc., et cetera, is going to put money somewhere, they really want to help Michael Whatley. Trump got him into the race. So I think that's my bellwether race. But the rest of the two are holds, the three are holds. North Carolina, to me, is the race to watch.
Yep, good call.
All right, let's we got a note from Katie who says that this whole thing Kamala was teasing last night, if any of you guys are watching Twitter, has sort of popped. Let's pull that up right now. I don't actually know what it is. What are we pulling up? I don't know.
I'm so glad you asked. I have good news. So Kamala HQ is turning into headquarters, and it's where you can go online to get basically the latest of what's going on, and also to meet and revisit with some of our great, courageous leaders, be they elected leaders, community leaders, civic leaders, faith leaders, young leaders. I'm really excited about it. So stay engaged, and I'll see you out there. Thank you.
I'm confused. So wait, she's turning her Twitter or her website into a place
of action,
Democratic
kind of.
leaders.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the big thing is Kamala, I keep saying this, wants to run again. And this is her way of kind of staying in the news. Here's some, fresh piece of, chum for X to go crazy about. I'm going to be in the conversation. My website. So presumably you're going to get emails, you're going to get volunteers, and you hope to get donors. Again, I still do not think that she will be our nominee, but I will say this. She is working every day to remain in the news. And if you just looked at polling, she is in the top, 2 or 3 in every test. I think a lot of that same idea. I know. I mean, I still do not think she is a good, I have not thought she was a good candidate in 1924 or 27 or 28, but she's not going away and she wants it. So we're going to have to keep talking about her.
I don't know how many
All right,
The
cut
Democrats
Sean's
are going to
internet.
have to like unite behind someone who can make sure they outpoll, except they won't, right? Like if she is that big of a threat and polling in like 30% of Democratic voters, and then you have all this fracturing with 10 other Democrats running, like.
Here's the thing, Rachel. Nobody fears her, so nobody feels like they have to organize to
Maybe they
defeat
should
her.
if she's still
Well,
polling
you're
that
right.
hard.
And look, there's always the issue of hope springs eternal. She's learned and she's a better candidate, right? I don't think so for all the reasons I've talked about her character. But I know Democrats who think, wait until she gets out in front of the cameras, not on book tours in, small towns. She will collapse the way she did in 19. She didn't even make it to the fall because she was so bad except for one debate that they're like, I'm not going to waste my breath going after a Black woman and potentially risk alienating Black leaders because I tried to take her down. Let her defeat herself. The risk is, remember, this was the view of the Jeb Bushes of the world. Trump will defeat himself in 15. So everyone else just keep running your race and attacking each other because he'll collapse. It is possible she does not. And again, if South Carolina goes first, like the map matters. But I've said it for over a year. She wants to run. She wants to run.
Let me just say this. If you're not old enough, go back and Google the rollout of New Coke.
Oh, man.
She is the new Coke of politics.
That's the most succinct answer you've ever given, Sean.
I will just say this: some genius in I'm sure at Coke headquarters decided to rebrand Coke, New Coke.
When was this? I'm sorry. When was it?
In the 80s.
Oh, this is why I was not. Well,
but look, it tells you something that more Democrats are starting to take shots at Newsom than Harris. So she benefits as long as she keeps gliding out there. The question is, at what point do some people potentially, like I know enough ex-staffers who would talk to the press. Like when do those stories start? And don't forget, Joe Biden's book is coming.
Yeah. I mean, look, I didn't just love a coconut tree.
Okay. I apologize. We only got to one question today. So tomorrow we will take more, make that a priority. But we are out of time here. And tomorrow's going to be a fun show. We'll talk about the Super Bowl. We'll do winners and losers, more questions. It'll be a good time. Did you have, what do you want to flag from your panel today, Sean?
Yeah. We've got so much. I am so excited about today's panel show, by the way. We'll do the Mondami video. We're going to break down the Trump interview with Tom Yamas because he said a lot of interesting stuff, which, by the way, I didn't even mention this. Like, it was supposed to be a Super Bowl interview, and here we are on Thursday talking about the whole interview.
Talk about the commercials coming early, right? It just it spoils it though, kind of, doesn't it? Don't you think?
I think there's enough content. He'll fill multiple shows of NBC.
Sure.
Well, look, I mean, I think we have a lot to break down. So tonight, obviously, this is going to be really exciting. Jessica Anderson from the Sentinel Action Fund, Erica Donnells, the future First Lady of Florida, will join us.
Very good.
He's going to win that primary, Byron Donald, you think? Yeah. Okay.
By the way, there was Kat McKinnon made a joke about at his expense. They're apparently best friends at the dinner last night. I was going to play some of that at the beginning, not play some of it, but read some of her jokes. Anyway, I digress, but maybe I should have because she's pretty funny. Anyway. Okay, guys, we'll see you tomorrow, 8:30.